lawman or an outlaw?
Bit of both, I reckon.
Hey, Damian, how you doing?
Good, man, good.
I love your hat.
Every day of my life.
Awesome, awesome. You have a very interesting career, and you've worked on some really great shows here recently.
Yeah.
Looking over your credits and everything, Winning Time, you get Snowfall, Step Up as well, I believe.
Yeah, this American Gigolo as well, I think was after, I think I did Gigolo right before I did Bass, if I'm not mistaken, yeah.
Yeah, looking here on your credits, yeah, you did American Gigolo, yeah, just last year. I'm sure you remember that very, very distinctly. That was it's a classic film too. It's
It was.
I'm trying to remember who the writer of it also did Mean Streets. I'm drawing a blank on his name. Paul Schrader.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been a while since I've seen it, but that must have been a real thrill to work on.
No, it was a joy. It was a joy.
Awesome. I've been able to screen 3 of the episodes with for Bass Reeves here. I know you're doing 4, 5, and 6. I do look forward to seeing those. And the fact that it's a Western on television, you have people of color, and it's fantastic, and it's a story that Bass Reeves is a story I've been familiar with for some time, and Morgan Freeman talked about doing it years ago, which would have been great to see him do it. Maybe it's like a feature or something, but you and Chad and Taylor have done, and David, most importantly, have done a fantastic job.
And Christina.
Yes, and Christina. Can you share some of your creative vision and things that drew you to this project? And I've read, the almost 40-page document with, different parts in it and familiarized myself with it, but it's much better to hear it from you and, what you want to gain from this experience.
Well, I don't know. The gain part is always left up to the world. People like me, we don't fight up with life like that too much. Whatever comes from it, this is me as a Rasta man talking to you as well. So whatever comes from it, comes from it. But going into it and the things that excited me about it, met Chad, read the script, loved the script. Met Chad, loved Chad. Met David, loved David. Met Taylor, loved Taylor because Taylor was like pouring gasoline on my fire. And I said to him at the end of our call, I said, look, sounds like we're about to make a Buffalo Soldier dreadlock Rasta version of the Lone Ranger. And he said, that's it. Because he asked me to pivot because my 3 episodes would sort of take place 10 to 12 years after, episode 1. So I could really sort of have a freedom in there. And all of those things for me became catnip of sorts, me as a person trying to find purpose in my work so that it isn't just work. And all of the points or all of the ingredients at that point of the soup made sense. And I think we had to start off on such a high because then we got to Texas. And Texas in the first 5.5 months of the year was every bit of everything you could ever ask for. Hail, snow, sleet, tornadoes, you name it, right? We had it. And Texas at times would just say, you know what, you guys can't do this today, or you can't do this, or I'm not allowing this today. So you'd be pushed into the corner creatively, and then you have to take your paces out and figure out, okay, well, what can we do today? The reason why I answered this question in that format was just to show you that, like, the foundation was strong, right? Like, so from the time we got started, there were people that before I ever stepped foot in Texas, I saw that I could trust. Like Chad, there was something about Chad. I had never worked with him before, but I just hadn't been that wrong about people, and I knew we would get along. David, I was like, well, let's just go, let time tell, and let's see how good of a guy he is. Just a beautiful human being. Taylor, supportive. And you're like, well, it's his universe, right? He's making all these shows right now, and millions of people are watching him. So you want that person to be welcoming. You want that person, like you say, to light your fire. And I love that. We joke at times just about, we both essentially do the same thing. I think a few less million people watch the stuff I make, if I'm being honest, though. Because he, as he puts it, he makes stuff with the people that he grew up around. And if you take a deep dive into my work as it's spawned over my career and even some of my current work, when I go back to the islands, that's exactly what I do. I make shows about people that I grew up with and around, and I want to tell these new, amazing stories with them. So we creatively, we just sort of saw eye to eye. And his process wasn't one of like, let me call Damian every day and be like, hey, you know, on my shows, I do this. It was always pivot, man. Like, you got this. You know, you've done this before. And I'm a firm believer that when a producer or a showrunner or anyone above the line on any of our productions make, you know, sort of have that spirit about themselves, it does trickle down. You know, me as I can do only but so much as a Rasta man come in the set every day, right? I breathe positivity. I'm like, we're going to get the day done. We're going to get the day done on time. But sometimes I don't have that person that's just like me and just as like excited about this. And guys like Taylor, guys like Chad, guys like David Oyelowo, Christina Voros, man, like these were like, I felt like I was the fifth member of the kids on the playground. And we just went to school every day and we're like, you know what? I remember one day Chad and I went looking for a tree. And I was like, why are we going looking for this tree? And he's like, I have not seen any tree like this an entire season. And now, to tell you this, I'm doing a disservice because you have to know Chad Feehan. Chad Feehan talks like a cowboy. He's like the coolest guy that we know. And you're like, I don't know if he's angry or I don't like that the tree like this. Let's just go see the tree, Chad. And, you know, we'd go see that tree and you get it. And you realize why he wants the tree. And he didn't have to make a fuss about it. He didn't have to yell. He treated you like one of the five. And you remember when we were all like in our elementary school days when we used to all tell each other you could do that because you're that good? That's the four people I ended up around on this project. And every day they let me know you're this good, you can do it. Just pull your boots up, go out and do it. And if they ever needed it back in return, I did the same thing. And I think that's how we were able to sort of get through this time while making something so magnificent.
That's fantastic. I've got to wrap up here, but it's been a pleasure getting to hear your story, and you've got a great team there supporting you, and I look forward to seeing your episodes, Damian.
Hey, thank you so much for the time, man. I hope I don't disappoint.
No, you were great.
Thanks,
Take
buddy.
care.
Yeah, man.
Really love Bass Reeves. Loves the fact you're a Texan, and you brought something with Taylor and David and Christina and so many people to life. But the main crux of it is you grew up around this westerns and this kind of environment, and you've got such a legit historical story which doesn't exist really with any other famous person of color lawman that I know of from that period. What has been your driving passion with this? And if you have a goal from bringing it out, what is that goal?
We wanted to first and foremost honor the legacy of Bass Reeves, who lived a remarkable life, overcame unimaginable circumstances, both before and after he became a lawman, and went on to become arguably the greatest lawman in American history.
Right.
First and foremost, we want to honor that legacy. In addition to that, it's important for us to show a story about the triumph of the human spirit, which we believe Bass embodies, and then the universality of the human condition, that as human beings, we all experience the same breadth of emotion.
Yes.
And if I can point to a line that Bass says in the second episode, he says, black, white, or red, we're all just men. And, there are some real, some perceived divisions amongst us as a society. And, if we can put a small chip in the perceived divisions, that would be a dream come true.
Powerfully stated.
Yeah.
Very, very true. What has been your most challenging aspect in developing this series and bringing it to life?
The production was challenging. In in the sense that, we were in North Texas. We were there from beginning of January through end of May.
Yeah.
And I love my home state as much as any other Texan loves Texas. But as you know, the terrain is beautiful, but it can be brutal.
Yes.
The weather can be beautiful, but it can also be brutal. And going to places that had no modernity to them made it a very challenging production. There was sometimes we have to drive 3 hours to a location on top of a marathon shoot day. There were times where we got shut down for a week and a half because of an ice storm. I remember vividly being in Glen Rose at 4 a.m. outside, and it was 18 degrees. Walking back to my car, and it's just a sheet of ice on my car. So the production was the most challenging element. The collaboration that I had with David Oyelowo, the writers on the show, the crew, was the most rewarding experience of my career. So, ran the whole gamut on this one.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I mean, David's a very talented actor and very talented, seems to be in finding historical characters to portray, which, he can nail,
right.
Specifically.
He's the most dedicated craftsman I've ever been around.
Mm-hmm.
I think his talent is transcendent. But what overshadows both of those things are who he is as a person. I mean, he is the most graceful human being I've been around. He's compassionate. He's patient. So, I feel incredibly fortunate to have David Oyelowo in my life. So,
absolutely. Yeah, he was fantastic in Selma.
Yeah,
and in Nightingale as well. And that sense of British stage and respect for acting comes through in the role. And
I've experienced a few times in my career. Obviously with David, I worked with Eddie Marzan on Ray Donovan for a long time.
Yep.
And a few others, and that dedication to the craft, somehow they it's bread in the water over there or something. I don't know, but it's truly remarkable to see. So,
it is. It's part of their culture. I mean,
Yeah.
You look at Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen and Judi Dench, and just the slew of great stage actors that have come from the UK, and there's a real respect embedded, I think, in their culture.
Yeah.
And David embodies that.
Yeah.
Did you? And we're probably running close here, but was there any westerns from your childhood, or even just youth in general, that you drew upon to kind of bring certain themes or maybe character development aspects to Bass Reeves?
I mean, I loved westerns as a child. I mean, Unforgiven obviously stands out pretty prominently in my mind. But for this, I would say the two things that I really sort of leaned into was The Revenant. The Revenant, so often the American West is glorified.
Right.
And The Revenant was able to show the brutality of it in a very effective way. I think we did both.
Yes.
And then No Country for Old Men, although a modern Western, really wrestles with the meaning of justice and how nebulous justice can be.
Very much so.
And so both of those two things were rolling around in my brain quite a bit as me and the other writers were crafting the story.
Thank you for sharing that. That comes across in Bass Reeves for sure. I know that you've listed those two. Those are favorites of mine as well. Thank you for your time, Chad. It's been a
Thank you so
pleasure.
much. Really appreciate it. All right.